Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Connections and Conversations. And I'm so excited to have Michelle B. Young here with me today. And
Hello.
um, hi, Michelle. I
Hi.
am,
Good to be with you.
well, I'm happy to have you here. And I think it's a very interesting topic that I'd like to dig into
Sure.
with you today. And, we just had, just left June, Pride Month. And the part of the
Yes.
reason I wanted to talk to you was that you have a non-binary child
Yes.
that you
Non-binary.
advocate for.
Yes.
And it was so interesting to me because I didn't know this. I've known you a while. We've been mutuals on the socials for a while, and I didn't
Yes.
know this. And you shared an article with me in a
Yes.
DM, and I was blown away, just blown away by how you advocate for your child. Can you tell me
Yes.
a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, one thing you should know about my family, both of my families, I should say, my family of origin and the family I married into, is that we are well-known advocates in the community and have always been so. Mostly around issues of civil rights and race initially. Those would be my grandparents' generation. But then my late aunt, who was also my best friend in the world, was an AIDS activist. So from the time I was very young, I grew up around the LGBT community, and my favorite uncles were drag queens. And so I feel really as much a part of that community as you can be as a straight person. Um, and so that's just what I grew up with. So we were already kind of in that LGBTQ advocate space before our child even ever came out to us. And I think part of the reason that my kid was comfortable coming out to us is because they have so many gay, lesbian, and trans people in their lives that when they started to ask questions about themselves, they were able to get answers from other people and really delve deep with questions and then knew they were in a family that would be accepting. And so they came to us when they were about, I would say, 13, they're 15 now, and said, Mom, Dad, I don't relate to being a female anymore. I don't want to be called Savannah, which is their birth name. I don't mind being called Savvy because they like what that means as a nickname, but I would prefer to be called Jordan because that fits with my gender identity at the moment. And I said, well, what is your gender identity in? And they said, well, I'm non-binary, which means I don't relate to being female or male. I feel closer to male, but I'm still questioning. So right now, I would say I'm in a gender fluid space. And gender fluid basically means that they have the characteristics of both, and it can go sort of either way. But I think they're waiting for any sort of final thing for that. They're still on a learning curve and figuring that out for themselves. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if when they're older they decide that they're a trans man and might want to get hormones and things of that nature to fit that space. But right now, since they're underage, those aren't even options that are available. So we're just kind of in this space of learning as a family and figuring it out. Um, and we just want to give them the freedom to do that. They're a great kid in every way possible. And, we're just supposed to support them on this journey as a parents. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And I know that I noticed that you call them they because
Yes,
there's a lot of things around the pronouns. And
yes.
again, I'm not, familiar. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it is an adjustment, and I try to model the good behavior. I do slip up. I have to say, Jordan gives me a great deal of grace when I do slip up. And they, their favorite line is like, "Mom, with everything that's going on in politics in the White House, the pronouns are the least of my worries right now."
Wow. You have raised a smart kid, a
Yes, a
great
great
kid.
smart kid and a smart aleck kid. So yes, you get exactly that curse what the parents give you. I hope you have a kid that's exactly like you. Yeah, it
Uh-huh.
works. It doesn't work, but it works more than it doesn't work. So yes, that's quick wit and smart aleckness. Yeah, they certainly got that from somewhere. I don't know where.
Wonder where.
But yeah, so it's like as we said, it's a learning curve for all of us, and we're just so happy that we're the kind of family that's supportive enough that they felt comfortable enough to go on this journey so young. And I think that's kind of what separates us from other families is that they're they usually have adult children that are coming out to them because it took them that long to figure it out. And our kid
Mm.
figured this out at 13 and was comfortable enough to come to us. Now, think if we were a Southern Baptist family that was deeply, rooted in all of that gender binary, gender role stuff, and
That would be
they
my
probably
family.
that would they would probably still be deeply closeted and afraid to come to us. Um, so so that's kind of why we do have the approach that we have, because we would rather be in our child's life helping guide them and guide all of us to finding answers and asking questions than just be so close-minded that we can't we can't accept them and that we can't be in their lives. Like, who wants that? That should not be the goal for any parent.
Right. And that was the other thing, of course, you're African American, and it's just like I
Yes,
said, for me, my experience, because I am Southern, grew up
yes,
in a very religious community.
yes,
I don't harbor any of those ideas myself because,
right.
I moved away and, formed my own thoughts and opinions. But I know I live in a community where that's very prevalent. So that was the other unique
Yeah,
thing about you.
that's I also want to say I don't know if this makes a difference or not, but we're Catholic, not evangelical. So I feel like our Catholic doctrine around those things, not that it isn't some conservative or whatever,
Right.
but it doesn't seem as closed off
Mhm.
as evangelical kind of is to these issues. And I
Mhm.
think part of that is the very strict gender roles that come with that belief system versus in Catholicism. Even though women aren't allowed to be priests, we don't really have that fundamentalist setup in the same way. And
Right.
and and our pope is really cool, right? Our last two popes have actually been pretty cool. And
Awesome.
yes, and I feel like that's kind of the groove my family is on, where you love unconditionally and Jesus would love everybody, is what the pope would say, right? And so you try to come at it from a place of love and not doctrine or judgment or you can't do this kind of thing. So
Well,
um
I do think that that probably has an impact on
yeah,
how you think around those terms, and I hadn't thought about it in that way until you just explained that. Yeah.
yeah, and no disrespect to the evangelicals. I have a ton of evangelical friends. I went to college in Kentucky, so I mean that's the
Yes.
belt. So yeah, no disrespect to them. They're really about their faith, and I respect that about them. But yeah, they have some fundamentalist leanings that we just don't, and that I think has made this an easier process for our family.
Well, what is it like? Because, as you said, they are very young, still in
Yes,
school. So,
yes.
what has it been like for you? How has their the school experience been, and how have you had to help navigate that?
Well, this is how nuanced everything can be, because my our kid initially was in Catholic school because my husband and I are both Catholic, but when we were born and raised in Catholic schools our whole life, and our kid was having a freaking miserable experience at the Catholic school. Now at the time we didn't know that it was part of because of they were non-binary and they were questioning whether or not they were gay because their first crush was a girl and all of that. And so that still was kind of an issue in the Catholic school. Uh,
Hmm.
as much as what I just said is true about the not having the fundamentalist leanings, they're still conservative enough that like there was no gay club at the Catholic school, and they weren't allowed to start one. Versus at the public school they're at now, they're a core member of their LGBTQ group, right? And they have friends who are their age in that club, and that's a totally different experience for them. It's very, they have a support system and they have other people that are identified, which they didn't have either of those things in the previous school. They felt really isolated and lonely. And that was a real wake up call for us because, I'll just say it. My husband and I have some elitist tendencies around education, being being born and raised in Catholic school and then going to private high schools and then prestigious colleges. we were kind of anti-public school. I'll just be frank about it.
It's okay.
And it's not that we don't support public schools or don't think they're a good idea and don't think they're good ones. We know all of that. But, we were kind of ingrained that the private school education was better experience. And it's frankly, through our child, we finally see, no, it wasn't. You can get, it depends on what your kid needs. And our kid needed validation and support that they weren't getting from their Catholic school experience, and not just around issues of LGBTQ. Our kid is also neurodivergent. And so at the Catholic school where they don't have to accommodate you, um, it was treated like a discipline problem instead of like a problem that they needed intervention for. And since they've gotten those interventions, they're like second in their class.
That
So
that is awesome. And I love how you make that comparison because, of course I grew up in, kind of the deep South and couldn't afford private school or anything.
I
And
mean, we were scholarship kids, so yeah, same deal.
yeah, but I do think that it is important, as you said, that they are now in an educational environment where they have friends that they can relate to, and I know that they are also involved in the drama community.
Yes, yes,
And
they were just Rafiki and the Lion King, and they killed it.
I saw that. I saw you share that online, and I love that because I was bitten by the theater bug, but actually I was an adult and young, and it was one of my gay friends in the military
Oh
that drugged
wow.
me into the community theater, and so it's a very special place.
It's such
Um,
a special place, and they get so much support and validation, and they're really so good, so talented. And it's a different experience for me because I come from a theater background. And I was one of my majors in undergrad. I was a drama teacher in high school at my old high school for years, and so to see your kid do it, and then my kid is naturally shy, like their dad is, and I'm not. I'm an extrovert, but so people expect theater from me, but not from this little quiet bookish kid, right? And then they get on stage and just explode and they're like, wait, where did that come from? Who is that? And so that's been really wonderful to see them able to come out of their shell and what they're capable of when they are supported, because it's a completely different story than what their K through 6 years were like, where they were very withdrawn and we were somewhat worried about that, and now they've really come out of their shell. So
I love that. And I love, I hope you keep sharing the journey. And
yeah,
I think it's an opportunity for us to all learn and
right.
grow. And, as we start to kind of wrap up, because I just wanted to have this brief, important conversation
I
with you
understand.
about this,
Mhm.
what would you um, share with our audience, to kind of help them understand more, become advocates or
Yeah.
supporters of advocates?
Well, here's I think the biggest issue people have with non-binary and trans is that they have to get over the first hurdle of binary thinking, which is that we're all either XX or XY, right? And that there's no in between or anything. So first off, you have to know that just biologically that's just untrue, right? That there are like 5 or 6 variations. I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's a lot in between XX and XY, and about 2% of the world's population as a whole falls into that category. And there are about 8 billion people on the planet, so 2% of that is 150 million. So there are 150 million people on the planet who are not going to fit into your gender binary. So we as a society have to decide how we are going to treat those citizens with the equality and respect that they deserve, the same as everybody else, because this isn't anything they can control. This is something that they're trying to navigate and deal with, just like the rest of us are trying to navigate and deal with whatever we were born with. So, and 150 million people, that's a little bit over half of the population of the United States. So, chances are, because there's 300 million people here, so chances are you're going to meet somebody in your life that's non-binary or trans, and rather than freak out about that, or take a look at the circus freak approach, which is what too many people often do. No, this is a beautiful, wonderful child of God who's a citizen just like you and deserves the same rights and protections that you have. What if it was you? What if it was your sister? What if it was your child? You don't know. So that's kind of how we come at it and approach it. It's just from a very rudimentary, okay, what are your hangups? Can we meet you where you are to try to walk you down this path of acceptance? Because that's where we need to be as a society.
Absolutely. And I love that. It's like meeting people where they are, and how do you, when people have issues with it, what's your response? What's your approach to dealing with that? I mean, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
different depending on the circumstances, but in
absolutely.
general,
In general, I try to meet people with patience and understanding where they are, unless they're hostile, and then I'm in full mama bear mode.
of
Right?
course.
But one of the things we as Black activists always tell our white friends, right, is to use your privilege for good. And so, in this particular instance, with my husband and I being a straight couple, a straight Black couple who's well known and well respected in the community, we're trying to use our privilege for good on behalf of our child, because we know that that article that I sent you that was in our local newspaper. I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but we knew that our names being in that article saying this is our child and we support them would hit different in the community than other people, because we have that privilege and have that kind of bank buildup of our reputation over generations in this community, right? So so that's what we wanted to do, is to say, hey, yeah, we're normal, respectable, bougie Black people that you've heard of, and this is our child, and we support them, and this is why, right? And we feel like we're in a good position to sort of usher other quote unquote normies down this path that they hadn't even thought of. And when I have conversations like the one I'm having with you, where you say, I never thought of that before, that's my favorite, is to give somebody a eureka moment. And then that becomes a process of learning, and they're going to ask questions, and we're going to learn together. And so that's kind of my take on it, is, how can we meet each other where we are to form the best, a better union, as Barack Obama would say.
Exactly. And I love that. And I know you're going to keep doing that. And I would like to have you back to talk about some of your other advocacy work. But I just felt
Sure.
like this was really kind of important, being that, yes, we have this new administration
Yes,
who
that's
is
very
it
hostile.
right, spewing hate for everyone, but
Yes,
especially
the
the
most
LGBT.
vulnerable people, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a crying shame, especially when you look at somebody like my kid, who is so beautiful and bright and smart and funny, and they're like, I mean, they got awards and everything in math and science and art and everything, and at a certain point, I'm like, I need to know what my kid is besides non-binary. My kid can do anything. My kid's going to be an amazing human if we can get them through this hostile environment and adolescence long enough for them to, reach their full potential. And that's the other thing, is that we don't know who these kids are going to be or what they're going to contribute to the world. One could cure cancer, one could do, amazing things. But if we are so busy browbeating them, not letting them play sports, not letting them feel like equal human beings, making it feel like the world hates them, we're going to lose a lot of these brilliant, talented kids and their contributions they would have made to the world. And that's a shame for them, and that's a shame for us.
It a lots for everyone all the way around. And I just want to tell you a funny little story that, I have hope for this younger generation. I talk often about my granddaughter, one who
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time with. I have two, but the one that I'm speaking about, she is 10 now. And her mom shares funny stories that she shares about Nana. And one of them was that I guess she heard me on the phone or on the socials or something, and I was talking about my girlfriend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so her thinking open minded like they are now. She thought Nana was gay. She was like
So, oh, I love that.
and I was like, she said, so you're gonna have to be careful how you use that word girlfriend or whatever. And I said, well, I just think it's interesting. I think it's an opportunity for us to have a conversation so she
Yes,
understands the nuances of girlfriend because I
exactly.
grew up. That's what we called our
Right,
girlfriends.
exactly. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, Gen Z, they're so like just open to everything in terms of that, and it's really kind of refreshing to talk to those kids because I'm a Gen Xer, so I grew up still at that real binary thinking, black white, gender roles, gender identity, sexuality, and it just seems to be blown wide open for them. And that's amazing to see, and I can't wait to see what journey that takes us on as humans.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for sharing a little bit of your day with me
Oh,
here. I think I've certainly gotten smarter. I hope the
of
audience
course.
does. And like I said, I hope this is not the last time that we have you here and talk about your advocacy because I'm just in awe of you. I've been a fangirl for a
Aw,
while.
thank you. Thank you. That's so sweet. And if my kid is open to it, I wouldn't mind you talking to them directly. Um, because I really think they could advocate for themselves and answer questions that people have because they're really very smart and very open and
I
I
would
think
love
refreshing.
that. And thank you for
Yes.
suggesting that because I would
Yeah.
never want to push that on, but I think that
Oh
that would
no.
be so awesome. So
Yeah.
we're going to work on planning that
All right.
conversation.
That sounds good. That sounds good to me.
All right. Well, thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much.